everyone. Let me start this webinar. And what would be the objective of this webinar? So basically in this webinar, we are going to discuss about Azure infrastructure. So we will start with the fundamental where we will understand. So what would be the Azure infrastructure, like the physical infrastructure where they have regions, geography, data centers, and then how you will manage Azure infrastructure. That means the management tools through which you can manage your services. So we are starting here administering Azure infrastructure. So how you will administer Azure infrastructure? Being an administrator, if I need to manage Azure infrastructure, so we have some core components into infrastructure like compute, storage, networking, database, which we have to manage, and we need to manage basic security also for those resources, for those components. So in this webinar, we have total 3 topics where we are going to discuss about the portal, then virtual machine and networking components. So you all will get one overview on these core components. Then I will show you one virtual lab on Azure Linux virtual machine. So where you would be able to understand how to create one virtual machine. Let me start with the portal first. So before discussing portal, we need to understand if I'm going to deploy any resource, so where my resource will be placed in Azure cloud. Just because cloud means what? Cloud means I am accessing resource which is provided by my service provider, which could be Azure or AWS or Google. So it depends. Now if I'm going to use service from my service provider, which is provided by my service provider, so where that resource will be placed? So basically Azure services, so they are in a geography. Inside one geography, there would be at least 2 regions. So inside one geography, like Asia Pacific, Australia, Brazil, Canada, China, Europe, France, Germany, North America, South America. So like this, UAE. So we have different geographies where you will get multiple, where we have regions. Inside one region, there would be availability zones. Now these availability zones are known as data centers. So these are basically physical data centers. So inside one geography, there would be multiple regions which will be paired with each other. Like if I will talk about India, so in India, we have Central India region, we have Central India, and we have South India. So Central India is paired with South India, and India is representing your geography. Central India, which is representing one region, and South India, which is representing one region. So they are paired with each other. Why? Just because of compliance, due to security, and due to data residency. So that you can create one highly available solution where you can manage your business continuity. If you have some critical applications for which you need to create some disaster recovery solution, so regions are paired with each other in every geography, and you would be able to create one high availability scenario or disaster recovery scenario for your application. Next thing, Azure portal. So basically management tools through which you can manage Azure services. Like I can create virtual machine, I can create storage, I can create virtual network, I can create databases, or I can create resources which is available on my cloud platform portal. But how? What would be the management options through which I can access those services or through which I can call them services, all those services? So basically, first management tool is portal here, which you can see Azure portal. So through Azure portal, which where I will get one GUI tool through which I would be able to access and manage my services. Second option is Cloud Shell. Now, what is Cloud Shell here? So basically, we have different option to call Azure services through which I can access Azure services. Let me open one pane so that I can explain you. So like this would be my Azure cloud where I need to access this cloud. So I can access this cloud for different management tools. So this would be my Azure cloud where I have different resources into Azure cloud. which I need to access. So first option which we have, that is portal. Through portal I can access. Second option, what I can do, I can access my Azure services through CLI or through PowerShell. Or if I'm a developer, I can access Azure services through SDKs, software development toolkits. So through SDKs like Java, Python, Ruby, PHP, we have different SDKs which I can download and I can call Azure services through these SDKs if I'm a developer. Or if I'm an admin, I can access my services through portal, through CLI, through PowerShell. So through portal, simply we need to access our portal URL, which would be portal.azure.com. Then I will get my portal access where I need to sign in with my credentials and I will get my Azure cloud and I can call any Azure resource from the portal. Similarly, I can access my services through CLI also. That means I can open my local CMD here. You can see command prompt, and through this command prompt I would be able to access or manage Azure resources through the commands. In that case, I have to have knowledge about the commands, command list, through which I can configure Azure resources. But if I have knowledge of commands, so how I will access Azure services on my local CMD? So we need to download one tool, integration tool. Okay, Azure tool, Azure CLI tool, through which you would be able to call Azure services. So you have to authenticate first of all yourself, and then as per your role, you will be authorized to access your services. So we need to download one CLI tool on our local system, and then we would be able to access Azure services. Similarly, through PowerShell, I can access. So on my local system, I have one PowerShell where I can access Azure services through PowerShell ISC or through PowerShell. So let me open PowerShell ISC here. So what I need to do, basically, just because this would be local system PowerShell. Now, first of all, in PowerShell, if I have to configure something or if I have to manage any service through the PowerShell, I need to install module for that particular service. Like if I need to configure Active Directory, so I need to install Active Directory modules inside my PowerShell, then I would be able to manage all services which is related to Active Directory or domain services. Similarly, if I have to manage or configure Azure services through PowerShell, I need to download services. So modules here for Azure PowerShell. For downloading Azure PowerShell module, we have some prerequisite, which is you should have .NET Framework 4.7 or later. You should have one PowerShell version which should be 5.1 or later. So that is the prerequisite here, and you should have 64-bit operating system. And for CLI, you should have 64-bit operating system. Then you would be able to download this tool, and that is the prerequisite which you need to complete first before installing PowerShell module. Once this will be completed, you can install PowerShell module on your local system. So once module will be installed on your local system, you only need to run one command here, which would be connect-az account. So this would be the command here. You will get one pop-up here through which in which you will provide your email ID and your password, and you will be authenticated. Correct. And then as per your role, you would be able to access and manage your services. So I'm not going to sign in here, but yes, we need to provide here our email ID and then our password, and you will be authenticated. And as per your role, you will be authorized to access Azure services. So this would be the option here. Now we have different options. What if I'm using here one system where I have 32-bit window? So it means I cannot run my PowerShell commands on that operating system just because I cannot manage these prerequisite on this system. Correct. So now how I will run PowerShell command and how I will run CLI command. If I have to run some script through PowerShell or if I need to run some script through CLI. So how I can run my script or how I can manage my services through CLI or through PowerShell. So in that case, we have an option here into Azure, which is known as Cloud Shell. Let me go to my portal. So you can see that is my portal here, where you can see follow my cursor. So there is next to this search bar, there is option Cloud Shell, which you can see. So here, if I click on Cloud Shell, this will be open here. So it's an interactive browsing. shell here, where you can interact with Azure services and you don't need to authenticate yourself. If you remember in PowerShell or in CLI, first of all, I need to authenticate myself through my ID and password. Just because I'm already signed into my account through my email ID and password, so I don't need to authenticate myself here, and I would be able to run my PowerShell commands. If I have to run some bash command or some CLI command, I can switch from PowerShell to bash at any time. So we need to confirm this, and I would be able to run my bash commands here on this terminal. Correct. So it depends on your work profile and as per your experience. So might be if I'm like me, I'm from a Windows background, so I have experience into PowerShell. So I will use PowerShell to configure or to access or to manage my services. Correct. So let me show you one command, small command, so you all would be able to understand like how it will create your resources. So let me open one duplicate tab as well. And if you will see the logo of Azure, which is updated by Microsoft recently. So now we are getting one new logo for Azure services. So here, let me go to resource group tab. So in my account, I have two resource groups. So let me show you if we have to create one resource group through PowerShell. So what would be the command? So we can run all commands here through this cloud shell, correct, which we can run from our local system. Here we don't need to download modules, we don't need to manage prerequisite, we only need to run command. So if you do not have the kind of infrastructure, kind of system where you can manage, you can install prerequisite and you can install PowerShell module. If you don't have that kind of system, you can use Azure Cloud Shell where you can run and manage your services. So let me create one resource. So new hyphen AZ is the module here, managing Azure services. So AZ is the module. Now which service you're going to manage? So AZ space resource group. So I'm going to create new AZ, that means Azure resource group. So creating resource group, I need to give resource group name. So hyphen name would be the switch. So like let me give one name which would be like RG1 resource group 1. Then hyphen I need to specify my location as well, where I'm going to create this, just because the Azure services, they are in different regions. They are in different regions. So I need to specify my region also where this resource group will be created. So hyphen location would be the switch here, and I need to specify. So you can use code or you can specify your location without code as well. So let me use here West US would be my location here. So press enter. So it will create one resource group here, and you will get your provisioning state, which will be succeeded for your resource group, which is in West US, which you can verify from your duplicate tab. So let me refresh. It will take few seconds to update new resource. So here you can see I'm getting one resource group RG1, which is created into West US. Now, the main thing which we have to remember here, now creating any resource inside your account, inside your Azure account, will requires one subscription. So you can see as I have one subscription here, valid subscription. So in which you can create your resources. So what is subscription here? Subscription, you can say like a license, like a billing boundary for your account. So whatever resource now in cloud, if I'm going to create any resource, as we know the fundamental of cloud. So creating and managing resource, there would be charges. So you have to pay as you go. So whatever resource you will create, whatever resource you will use, you have to pay for that resource. Okay, that is the fundamental of cloud. Now, as per this fundamental, if I will create any resource into Azure cloud, how Azure will meter my resource utilization? So this will be metered through one subscription. So subscription would be your billing boundary, your security boundary, where you can apply policies, where you can apply RBAC, that is control who can access your services inside your subscription. So there would be multiple users, there would be multiple employees inside your organization who are going to access your account from their ID and password. So how you will authorize those users? Okay, so we have different scope levels where we can provide permission to those users, and as per the permission they would be able to access my services. Correct. So this would be subscription would be one. It's like a license where your services will be metered by Azure. So whatever service you're going to use, there would be some pricing for that service. So this will be metered by your inside your subscription by Azure. So that's why subscription is required. So if you have valid subscription, then you would be able to create or access Azure resources. Otherwise, you cannot create any resource inside Azure cloud. So for creating resource, we require subscription where we have different options to get one subscription. Like, and I can, like if I'm an organization, I can do enterprise agreement with Microsoft, or I can purchase one subscription from retailer. I can create one free tier account where in free tier account I will get $200 credit from Microsoft, which I can use in 13 days for my resources. So I can create environment, I can create testing labs where I will get $200 credits, which I have to use in 30 days. Okay. After 30 days, this credit will be expired. So this would be the option where I can use free tier account through my credit card or debit card. I can create free tier account and through which I can access and manage Azure services, where I can create testing lab and I can learn Azure services through the free tier account. Or we will get one Azure student pass from Microsoft partner. So like you all will get one student pass, Azure student pass, in which you will get $100 credit, which you have to use in 30 days. So this would be valid for 30 days. So through this Azure Student Pass, you will get one subscription, which would be Azure Pass sponsorship subscription, and you need to redeem this. So whenever you will get one pass, you have to redeem that pass. So whenever you will redeem that pass, you will get $100 credit in your account, and which you have to use in 30 days. Now, when I have subscription, I can create resources. So as I have already explained you that we can access our services through a PowerShell, through CLI, or through portal, through Cloud Shell. So you can access your services through the through this PowerShell or Bash into Cloud Shell, or we can access through local PowerShell or through local CLI, or I can use mobile app. Now, through mobile app, I would be able to access and manage my services. So let's assume I'm traveling, okay, and I do not have access of my laptop, and I'm not carrying my laptop. Okay, so and now I need to restart my virtual machine. I need to stop my virtual machine, which is running inside my cloud, or I have to delete some resource. So how I will do that? So basically, we have Azure mobile application, which you can download and install in your mobile. So that is available for Android and iOS both. So as per your handset, you can download this application inside your mobile, where you can sign in through your account, and then you would be able to see your all resources. The best part is here, inside your mobile app you will get Cloud Shell also, so through which you would be able to run PowerShell commands. So if you have knowledge of PowerShell command or Bash commands, you would be able to run PowerShell and Bash command, through which you can manage your services. So in critical situation, if I do not have access of any resource, if I have mobile phone and I have this application inside my mobile phone, I would be able to manage my resources. I would be able to start, stop, and delete my resources. I would be able to create new resources through PowerShell. Correct. So this would be also an option through which you can access and manage your services. Next part is availability options. Availability for your virtual machines. Now let's assume I need to create one application into Azure cloud, where let's assume depends basically on my requirement. So I can create 2 tier or 3 tier application, depends on my requirement or my organization requirement. Let's assume I have to create one 2 tier application. So before discussing 2 tier application, let's assume I need to create one application here into Azure cloud. So what would be the option where I can create one application? So and I need complete control on my over my infrastructure. So if I need complete control over my infrastructure, just because in cloud we have different service model, where we have infrastructure as a service, we have platform as a service, we have software as a service. So these are the service model. Okay, so if I need complete control over my infrastructure, I will use infrastructure as a service resources. So it means I will create one virtual machine. VM depends on my application. So I will select one platform which would be like OS, which would be Windows or Linux. Let's assume I have created one Windows virtual machine here. So this infrastructure will be provided by my service provider, which would be Azure here, and I will have to manage this virtual machine. That means I would be responsible for my application which I'm going to host on this virtual machine. So I will create one virtual machine, Windows virtual machine, where I will publish my code. So and like in .NET, I'm going to host my web application. So I will publish my code into .NET. I will enable IaaS service inside this virtual machine, and my web application and DB database. Everything is configured on the same virtual machine. Correct. So this virtual machine, this kind of infrastructure, this kind of architecture, that is known as single point of failure. So this would be single point of failure. Why? Just because if this VM will be down, or if there would be some disaster to Azure resource in that particular data center, so this VM will be down. And if this VM will be down, my entire application will be down in that case. Correct. So what I need to do, I need to create one high availability environment where I can create more than one resource for high availability purpose. So what I can do, I can create two virtual machines for my web application, and I can create one distributed environment where for my web application, I will use one tier, and for my DB application, sorry, which would be my backend. So for my backend, I will use another tier. That is called two-tier environment here. So this would be your front end, this would be your backend. Now I can place my virtual machines. So where this would be front end, my web content will be hosted on this virtual machine, and my database is hosted on another virtual machines where I'm using more than one virtual machine for web and for DB, and my load will be distributed through a load balancer to my resources. I have created this kind of environment, but just because we are using Azure cloud and we don't know where my resource will be placed inside Azure data center. So might be this will be placed inside the same rack in Azure data center. My all VMs, they all will be placed inside one rack. So if they will be placed inside one rack, what if there would be some disaster to rack, which is also possible thing. So if there would be some disaster to rack, that means my complete application will be down at the same time. Why? Just because my all services, they all are hosted on the same rack inside one data center. So like this would be the placement here where you have multiple racks into one availability zone, which is known as data center here. So let's assume we have three racks. So where we have power and network. So let's assume they all are connected to same power source, and there would be one network. So they all are connected to common network. Now this would be rack 1, this would be rack 2, this would be rack 3. So if I'm using, I have created one environment for high availability purpose where I didn't select any availability option from Azure side. So there are multiple options, there are different options into Azure for high availability, but I have created two virtual machines or more than one virtual machines, like 2, 3, or 4. It depends on my my application criticality. So it depends on my application and on my organization. So how many VMs I need to create for high availability purpose. Now, if I'm not using any availability option, so might be my all VMs will be placed on the same rack. So if there would be some disaster to this rack, they all will be down at the same time. That means my complete application will be down. That means there would be no high availability. So for managing this kind of situation, we have SLA, service level agreement, which is provided by your service provider. So what it state like if you are going to use one single virtual machine with premium storage. Now storage which you are going to use, we have two kinds of storage here, standard and premium. In standard, you will get normal magnetic HDD drive. In premium storage, you will get SSD drives, where you will get high IOPS. So if I'm using one single virtual machine with premium storage, so this would be the high availability. So high availability, high durability, they all are measured in nines. So that means I will get 3 nines high availability in for single virtual machine. Correct. When I'm going to create one high availability environment, so it is recommended to use either one availability set or one availability zone option, so that you will get high availability as compared to the single virtual machine. Why? Let me explain you once again. So if I'm using availability set, let's discuss first of all availability set here. So if I'm using availability set, so what Azure will do, it will place my all virtual machines in different rack within the data center. So let me explain you that also. So this would be my region here, region one. Let's assume region one, or you can say like US East one. This would be the region here which I'm using. So inside that region, I have multiple data centers. So let's assume I have 3 data centers. So these data centers are represented by AZs, availability zones. So these are physical data centers which are interconnected, or you can say which are paired with each other through the low latency link. So they all are connected with each other and they all have different power and network resources. Correct. So they all are isolated from power and network and from the hardware as well. Now, this would be the availability zone where I'm going to create one availability set. So if I'm using availability set as a high availability option, so my resources will be placed inside this availability zone. How? So we have these racks. So what Azure will do, Azure will place your virtual machines into different racks. Okay, which is called here fault domain. So there are two terms in availability set: fault domain and update domain. So for disaster, we are using here fault domain. Your VMs will be placed inside one fault domain, correct? And your all VMs, they all will be placed into different fault domains like FD0, FD1, FD2 for high availability purpose. So if there would be some disaster to this rack, so fault domain D0 will be down at this time. That means your rack 1 will be down at this time. Still, you would be able to access your application from different rack from this data center. Correct. Similarly, we have update domain. So in disaster condition, we will use fault domain. For update domain, which is for maintenance, planned maintenance, like we have some patch, or Azure is going to patch my rack, so my VMs will be placed inside different update domain, like update domain 0, update domain 1, update domain 2. So at a time, Azure will only patch one update domain, and after patch might be your rack will be reboot, so it will only reboot one update domain. So resources which will be inside one update domain, it will only patch one update domain at a time, and it will only reboot that update domain. Once this will be done, then it will start next update domain. So if you have some planned maintenance, you can use where you have update domains in availability set. So where you will get the high availability from Azure wise. But what if my data center goes down? So if my data center goes down, that means again my resources, they all are placed inside one data center where I have different racks. So data center goes down, there is no option. My application, there would be some downtime for my application, and my application will be not accessible for my customers, for my clients. So I need one high availability as per data center wise also. So in that case, we have different options. So here you can see if I'm using availability set, you can see availability set, which will protect against failures with data centers. So you would be able to place your instances, your virtual machines into different racks. Now you will get this number of high availability where I'm getting 99.95% high availability. Okay, so what is high availability? So basically through high availability, you will get the downtime. Downtime for your resource in terms of per day, per week, per month, per quarter, per year. So what would be the maximum downtime for your, in disaster case, what would be the maximum downtime for your application that you will get through this SLA? And this is defined by your service provider. Similarly, if I need high availability as per the data center side, so I can use availability zones. Inside one region, we have different availability zones. We have different data centers which are connected with each other through the low latency link. Now what I can do, I will place my one virtual machine into first availability zone, second into second availability zone, and third into third availability zone. So I will get high availability as per the data center wise. So if my one data center goes down, still my app, I would be able to access, or my client or my customer would be able to access my application from different availability zones. Correct. So this would be the option here. Now, if I'm using availability zones for my placement, my VM placement, then I will get 4 nines SLA, high availability. Now, what if my complete region goes down? There is some disaster, there is some natural disaster, and I'm not able to access my region. So my region is completely down here. So there would be downtime for my application in that case. And I cannot access my application, my client, they will not access my application. Or if my application is a business critical application where I have to configure high availability, or I need to configure one disaster recovery solution for my application, what I will do, I will create one disaster recovery solution where I will use two regions, region one, region two. So this would be my primary region, this would be my secondary region. If there would be some disaster to my primary region, my application will be accessible through the primary region. If there would be some disaster to my primary region, so there would be one failover to secondary region, and my users, my customers, my clients, they all would be able to access my application from the paired region. As I told you, regions are pairs. So inside one geography, we have multiple regions which are paired with each other. Like in North America, we have East US, which is paired with West US. So similarly, in Asia Pacific, we have East Asia region in which we have Hong Kong, which is paired with Southeast Asia with Singapore region. Correct. So regions inside one geographic regions are paired with each other where you can configure disaster recovery solution. So now they all are paired just because of the compliance, so that we can create one disaster recovery solution for our business critical applications where I can ensure my business continuity and disaster recovery if my region will be down. So these are the high availability option which I can use and I can manage my services. So how you will define, as I already told you, keep application online during maintenance or hardware failure, where we have FD, which is known as fault domains. So you will get fault domains where you will place your virtual machines. So your all VMs will be placed in different fault domains. If you are going to get 3 virtual machines, so your VMs will be placed 3 fault domains like a rack inside our data center, in physical data center. So your VMs will be placed in different rack. Similarly, we have update domains. So my VMs will be placed in different update domains. So if there would be some planned maintenance, so Azure will only update one update domain at a time. And if there would be some downtime or there would be some restart, so it will only update, it will only patch and reboot your one update domain at a time. That's called planned maintenance, which you will get to update domain. And if there would be some disaster, that like my rack is failed due to power or due to some other hardware failure, so still I would be able to access my resources from different rack just because I have virtual machines which is placed on different fault domains. Availability zones, so physically separate locations, as I told you, within an Azure regions. So inside our region we have multiple data centers which are known as here availability zones. So include one or more data centers equipped with the independent power, as I told you, calling, cooling and networking resources. So they all are isolated as per power wise, cooling wise, networking wise and hardware wise. If one availability zone goes down, the other continues working. So inside the reason we have different availability zones, or you can say different data centers which are interconnected with each other through low latency link where I can create my resources. So if one availability zone goes down, still these will be accessible and I would be able to, and my resource would be up and running. So there would be no downtime for my application if this would be the solution. Next topic is here, which is virtual network. Now, it's an important, or you can say core part of infrastructure, cloud infrastructure for any cloud. Like if you are using AWS or Azure, if you need to create your application in a secure environment where you can manage your security or you can customize your requirement, you can do customization, and as per the customization you can create one custom solution for your application. We can do that into AWS through VPC, virtual private cloud, which is known as here VNet, virtual network. So in Azure, we have different networking services. So we have Azure Virtual Network, we have Azure Load Balancer, we have VPN gateways, we have Azure Application Gateway, Content Delivery Network, Traffic Manager, Azure Front Door. There are many services which is available into Azure networking services, which you can create and configure inside your Azure account. Now, if I have to create one environment where I can, similar to my on-premises, similar to my on-premise data center, if I need to create an environment where I can place or create my resources, which I can manage, how I will do that. So let me show you this on Paint, so you all would be able to understand that from the Paint. Let's assume I need to create one or two-tier application in high availability environment. How I will do that? Similar to on-premises. So what I will do, I will create one VNet inside Azure. Correct. So let's assume this would be VNet one, where my network address would be like this: 172.16.0.0/16. This would be my network address, which I'm going to use for my VNet. Now inside my VNet, I need to create two-tier application along with high availability. So what I will do, I will create my virtual machines. So this would be the subnet here for two-tier application. Public subnet you can say, or you can say front end, or you can say web subnet. Depends on you how you're calling your subnet services. So this would be private subnet, or you can say backend, or you can say DB subnet. It depends on you. Now, inside this subnet, I will create my virtual machines where I will use high availability options AZs. So they all will be placed in different availability zones. Okay, that means in different data centers. Similarly, in this subnet, I will place my databases and I will use availability zone as a high availability option. So my DB instances will be placed in different availability zones. So let's assume first VM is placed in first availability zone, second is placed in second, third is placed in third. So first DB server is placed in first, then second, and in third. So this would be one environment where my network address for this subnet would be, let's assume 172.16.1.0/24. And for this subnet, this would be the address. Correct. Now, what I can do here, if I have to create one environment as per the compliance. So as per the compliance, I have created one high availability environment. Now, if I need to route my traffic as per my custom route, just because in Azure VNet, due to NSG. Now, what is NSG here? NSG is a firewall here, network security group, in which you will get two types of tabs, inbound and outbound. So there would be two types of services: inbound services, outbound services, where you can filter your traffic. You can create rules through which you would be able to allow or deny your services, your ports and protocols. So this would be a layer 4 firewall where you would be able to filter your traffic on the basis of port and protocols, which you will specify, and you will open, you will allow and deny your traffic through this firewall. Correct. So by default, within one VNet, all traffic is by default allowed in default NSG. So everything will be by default allowed into inbound and into outbound within the VNet based environment. That means whatever subnets we have configured here, they all will be able to talk to each other. That means there would be any to any communication will be enabled by default within your VNet due to this firewall. So by default, if this would be open here, that means I cannot trace my traffic, I cannot do packet capturing. So in that case, I have to, and as per my compliance rule, I need to use some NVA device, which is known as network virtual appliance. NVA. So what I want, traffic which is going from, which will be forwarded from public to private. Okay, if there would be no NVA, this will be done directly just because there is any to any communication by default enabled, which is known as system route. By default, that is enabled, and I would be able to talk to each any service within my VNet based environment. What I want some custom route through which my traffic will be sent to, first of all, this device, which is going to private from public. So public traffic will be forwarded to NVA device where I have rules. I have configured rules. So as per the rule, if rule will be matched, then this traffic will be forwarded to private resources where I have critical resource database, which is critical for my organization. Correct. So, and I would be able to do monitoring, packet capturing. So I can do n numbers of things through this NV device. And it depends the kind of device which I'm going to use. So I can use like Azure firewall, which is a Azure managed firewall. So where you would be able to filter your traffic from layer 3 to layer 7. Correct. And we have different tabs here, like I can create policies, which would be network policies, app policies, or I can create net rules as well. So this would be the option which I will get through Azure Firewall. I can use Azure Firewall, which would be Azure managed service, or I can use third-party NVA appliances as well, like Barracuda, ASA, and we have different vendors NVA devices, which I can use, but it depends on my compliance rule. So as per the compliance, I can place my NVA device through which I can route my traffic within this VNet based environment. I can do that. Now, for configuring this kind of environment, or if I have to filter my traffic where I have different tiers, like this would be my VNet where I have different subnets, front end, app tier, and DB tier. Let's talk about 3-tier application. So this would be my front end or my web tier. This would be my app tier. This would be my DB tier, or you can say backend tier. Now I have to manage my traffic from front end to app tier. So there would be one NSG, which will be scope to my resource or to my subnet. Correct. So I would be able to filter my traffic. What I will do, I will filter my traffic through this NSG. So there would be one inbound port which will be open here into this front end, which will be open for port 80 and port 443 as per this subnet. So as this would be a front end, so whatever resource I will place here, this would be accessible from internet. So, and it will receive requests from the internet. So that's why I have to open port 80 and 443 in my inbound port. Similarly, from this front end tier, there would be requests which will be sent to my app tier. So I will open port 443 into app tier NSG in inbound. Then from my app tier, there would be one request which will be sent to my DB tier. Now, which port I will open? So in my DB tier inbound port, I will open port like 3306 or SQL or 1433. My DB port I will open here for app tier only. So I will only entertain requests on this port, which I will receive only from app tier. So this would be a kind of environment which I can create this kind of architecture where I can manage my traffic through the NSGs, where I can open my port. So whatever port I will allow, I will only receive the traffic from that port, and my resource will only entertain a particular port and protocol which is opened by me. So I can configure this kind of architecture where when I have knowledge of VNets. Correct. So just because of due to the limitation of this webinar time limitation, I can only explain you these the basics here, but there are many things which we can, like, we can practically test all those things. This any to any communication, then appliance, so where we can place as a firewall, or we can create one router through which we can route our traffic from public to private, which is known as here UDR into Azure. That is known as UDR, user defined route, or you can say a custom route or user defined route. So where I'm using custom routing, so we can do that through route table, where we have one service into Azure that is known as route table. So through route table, I would be able to route my traffic from source to destination through a appliance, and I would be able to monitor my traffic. I would be able to trace my traffic, so which will be forwarded from source to destination. So that is the basic of VNet here. I can use load balancer as well. So let me give you one example for load balancer. When I will create one high availability environment where I'm using more than one virtual machine for my application. So how my users will send and how they will understand that where they have to send, on which server they have to send the request. So basically this would be done by one load balancer. So we will use one networking service which will be load balancer, which will be connected to our backend resources. A backend resource would be my web instance or web application which we have created, and there would be one IP address, public IP address, if this would be a public load balancer. So there would be one public IP address which will be associated to your load balancer, and through which your load balancer will be connected to internet. Now users can send request to your load balancer's IP address, or if you are using, if you are organization where you have some brand name like xyz.com, so what you will do, you will connect this load balancer with other different Azure service which is known as Azure DNS. This load balancer will be connected to Azure DNS, where you will create one alias record for this load balancer, where you will use load balancer's IP address, or there would be one DNS name to your load balancer, public DNS name. You can use public DNS name, and you can map your domain name, which would be xyz.com. So you will create one record, alias record, in which you will map your load balancer's DNS name to this name. So any request which is coming to xyz.com, this will be sent to load balancer DNS name. This will be done by Azure DNS only. So Azure DNS will send this request to your load balancer. Then load balancer, on your load balancer, it depends the type of load balancer which I'm using. If I'm using standard load balancer, which would be a legacy load balancer into Azure, which works on layer 4 only. So if it works on layer 4, that means it use ports and protocol to filter your traffic. So it will check the rule first of all, which port and protocol will be filtered by this or listened by this load balancer. Let's suppose like I'm listening port 80. So load balancer will only enter in this port, which will be received by your load balancer. Then your load balancer will distribute load, if I'm using layer 4 load balancer into Azure, to evenly to all backends. Why? Just because it use round robin algorithm. So through round robin algorithm, whatever request, so first request will be sent to first server, second will be sent to second server, third will be sent to third server. That is called here evenly distribution, which will be done by your load balancer. You can use application gateway, which would be an advanced load balancer in AWS, in sorry, Azure. So where you can do advanced routing, you can do path-based routing, you can do domain-based routing, you can use SSL offload also. So SSL termination is also supported on your application gateway, and WebSocket HTTP2 is supportable there. Web application firewall is web, that is also supported on Azure application gateway, which you can enable, and through which you would be able to prevent your application from cross-site scripting and SQL injections and from DDoS attack as well. So you will get one advanced load balancer which works on layer 7. So that means if it works on layer 7, it supports 80 and 443. This would be the port which will be listened by your load balancer which works on layer 7. Load balancer which works on layer 4, it use TCP or UDP to configure rules to listen to request from internet. So application gateway, which works on layer 7, so it will only entertain port 80 and port 443, and where you will get lots of advanced services where you can configure custom error page, you can do a path-based routing, you can host multiple domains, or as I told you, SSL termination would be there, and you will be able to host your gateway into different regions. You can scale up or scale down your region. You can use auto scaling for your application gateway as well. So that means you will get advanced features in advanced load balancer, which is known as application gateway. Similarly, we have VPN service also. So in Azure, if this would be my Azure infrastructure where I have placed my resources, like these are my virtual machines within one VNet based environment, and this would be my on-premise data center where I have multiple departments in which I have resources. So if I need to create one hybrid solution through which I can connect my on-premise data center to Azure, what I can do, I can use, there would be two options. First option would be site-to-site VPN, through which I would be able to connect my on-premise data center with Azure VNet, or second option would be Express route. Through Express route, I would be able to use my ISP's backbone network, and through which I will get one dedicated connection from my data center to Azure data center, which will be totally private connection. So it depends on my requirement. So if there would be some compliance rule which state that I cannot my data which is going, which will be travel from on-premise to Azure, so it will not use public carrier. So in that case, I cannot configure VPN. So I need some solution where I will use private connection from my data center to Azure data center. So I will use Express route, which will connect my data center through its backbone network to Azure data center, and I will get one dedicated line. Now, so this would be option for hybrid connectivity, which you can use here. So now let me go to the next thing, which would be lab, which I have to show. I need to show all of you. So how you will configure one virtual machine into Azure and cloud. So for that, I have to go to my portal, and let me close this. So if we have to create any resource in Azure environment, so you would be able to search your resource by the keywords through this search bar, or there's tiles. If you will see at left hand side, if you will follow my cursor, so there are three tiles. If you will click on it, you will get one pop-up here in which you will get create a resource, from where you will get the different categories for resources, like for IoT resource, for database, for compute, for networking, for machine learning. So if you will see, these are the categories here. So as per your category, you can select your resource. If you don't know from which category you will get your resource, you can search your resource from here, from the search bar. Similarly, you will get your resource from all services. You can click on all services and you will be redirected to all services, and resource which you are accessing frequently. You can add those resource into favorite tab. Okay, and you would be able to access those resource from this favorite tab which you are accessing frequently. Let me search my resource from the search bar, which would be the easiest option. So you only need to type your keywords and you will get all the related services in the output. So like we are going to create one virtual machine. So let me search here virtual machine. So you would be able to see services which will be related to virtual. I will get the output of those services. I need to select my resource, which would be virtual machine. So let me search virtual machine. So right now there's no virtual machine in my portal. So let me click on add here. And here you can see this would be the dashboard, a UI from where you can create virtual machine. So these are the tabs which we have to configure. So I will explain you tabs or the services which will be common. So first tab is subscription. Again, for creating any resource, we should have one valid license or valid subscription. So that is my subscription. Now, creating resource. So whenever you will create any resource inside Azure infrastructure, Azure in cloud, you will place your resource in one container, which is known as a resource group here. So it's a logical unit here where you will group your similar kind of resources. That may create a new resource group, or you can use one existing resource group. So if you remember, we have created one resource group through PowerShell RG1 resource group 1, correct? So I can select this resource group, or I can create a new resource group as well. Let me select this existing one. Scroll down from here, virtual machine name. So whatever VM instance you're going to create here, you need to give one name to your virtual machine. So let me give here name, which would be like Linux VM1. So you can give any name here. Then you have to select your region, in which region you are going to create this resource. So you have to select your region. Let me select my region, which I'm going to use here. So I'm going to use here US East. Scroll down again, availability option, that means high availability option. So here if you will see, I will get two types of high availability option. One would be availability zone, second would be availability set, third is VM skill set, which is in preview. So additionally you can create one a VM skill set for auto scaling, correct? So let me select here availability set as a high availability option, and I do not have any existing availability set, so I need to create one new availability set. Let me click on it. So I will get one option here. So let me give one name, which would be AVST1. This would be a meaningful name here. I will get two components here, which would be fault domain and update domain. So by default, you will get three fault domains in your availability set and 20 update domains. Maximum 20 update domains you will get here for availability set. So maximum number would be 20 here, and maximum fault domain which you will get here 3. So default you will get 2, and default update domain you will get here 5. So this would be the default numbers which you will get. You can increase up to your maximum limit. So for fault domains, which is 3, and for update domain, which is 20 here. Then click on OK. So this would be the availability set for my virtual machine where my VM will be placed. Then I need to select image. So image means my operating system. So click on drop down here. You would be able to see we have different types of images which I can select, or if I have some custom image, that means I can create my custom image as well, and or I can select my custom image also from this tab. So if I have to select my custom image, there's option see all images. So I need to click on it. I will be redirected to next page where you would be able to see there is a one tab, my images. Follow my cursor. So if I will click on my images here, I will get my custom image, or I have categories in marketplace, and I would be able to see my image from the marketplace if it is not available into this recommended list. Now let me select one Ubuntu server. I need to select size. Spot instance we are not going to discuss in this webinar here. So let me select here size. So size means the compute in a resource, compute infrastructure. That means how much virtual CPU you're going to use for this image and for this virtual machine, or how much GB RAM you need. So this is known as, this is available in size here. Okay. So if you will click on see all size, you will get the size chart where we have different types of different size which is available here, like DS1, DS2, B1, B2, A1, A2. So as per your selection, you will get different hardware, different compute resource. Like if I will select DS1 V2, I will get one virtual CPU, 3.5 GB RAM, where I will get 4 data disks. So that is the limitation for this type of size. So, and maximum IOPS which I will get, that is 3200, and there would be one temporary storage which will be attached to my virtual machine, which will be 7 GB. So premium disk that is supported here, and if I need to check monthly charges, so this would be the monthly charges for this virtual machine. Let me go with this size, DS1 V2. This would be the size for my VM. Now creating Linux virtual machine, we need to use, you can use in Azure, you can use password or SSH public key. Now instead of password, if you will use public key, this would be the secure option here for accessing your virtual machine as compared to password, just because in password we will use username and password which will be compromised. Okay, if there will be some keylogger in your system, so this will be compromised. But if I'm using here SSH key, so what Azure will do, it will generate two types of key. One would be public key, which will be stored inside your virtual machine. Second would be private key, which will be downloaded on your local system. So if you will share your private key with someone, then the user would be able to access your virtual machine. Otherwise, you can only access your virtual machine through that private key. Just because the thumbprint, whenever you will access your virtual machine, it will ask you to bring your private key. So whenever you will bring your private key, then it will match the thumbprint from the public key. So if thumbprint will be matched, then it will allow access to your virtual machine. So let me go with the SSH public key. Now, if I'm going to use SSH public key in password, very simple. We need to give one username and password to our virtual machine. So I'm going with SSH key. So you would be able to get some advanced knowledge on this. Here we need to specify username. Now instead of password, we are using SSH key. So there are different options for using SSH key, where I can generate new key. I can use existing key which is stored in Azure. That means if I have created some previously I have created some virtual machines, so where I have created some keys, so which I can use. So I can use my existing key also, or I can use existing public key. Now what it does mean by existing public key? So existing public key means like I have one tool on my system which is known as putty key generator, which I can use, through which I can generate public key. So here you can see this option on this tool, generate public and private key. So I can generate one public key, and for that public key, I can generate one private key. So let me click on it. So it will generate one public key. So through this operation, it will generate one public key, which I can store, for which I can store one private key on my local system. So this would be the data for my public key. You can see here public key for pasting into open SSH authorization. So let me copy this data. So I have to copy this data, and then I need to go to Azure, where I will select my option, which would be like use existing public key. So it will ask me to paste my public key data here. I will paste my data here. So this would be my data which is pasted here. Correct. Then what I will do, for this public key, I need to generate one private key. There's option save private key. So click on it and click on yes. What it will do, it will save one private key. So like Linux 1 on your local system in PPK format. So which would be done, which I can show you here. So this would be my private key, which is stored on my local system, and that is my public key data, encrypted public key data, which I have pasted inside Azure environment. So I can use my own public key, or I can use Azure public key and private key, depends on me basically. So let me select here, generate new key pair, where Azure will be able to generate new key pair. So let me refresh my tab here. So I can use Azure public key. So that is totally up to you. You can use password, username and password. You can use SSH key, where you can use existing SSH key, or you can use Azure generated SSH key. So I'm going to use Azure generated SSH key. So let me select my reason. Let me go to the availability set, and let me create a new availability set, just because I didn't provision my VM creation. So AVST1, and I'm going with the default configuration here. Default size I'm using here, key would be SSH public key, username would be Azure user, and I'm going to generate one new key pair. This would be the name of my key pair, private key, which will be stored on my local system. Scroll down. Now these are the public ports which will be open inside your NSG, network security group. As we are creating one Linux virtual machine, so if we have to access and manage our virtual machine through our local system, so we have to open port 22 or SSH on our firewall in inbound role. So I'm going to open SSH as well as HTTP inside my firewall. Scroll down. Next tab is disk. So on disk tab, you can select the type of OS disk, which would be premium or premium SSD, or standard SSD, or standard HDD. It depends on your application requirement. So your application is a throughput intensive application, or it is a IOPS intensive application, you will select your storage. So I'm going with the default option here. Then there would be one default encryption, which would be a platform based encryption, which will be applies to your OS disk. Correct. So data which will be on rest, that will be encrypted by Azure. You can use later, you can use disk encryption to encrypt your data. You can attach more data disk here, which you can attach right now, or you can attach later also. In advance, you can see you can use managed disk or unmanaged disk. It depends. So what it is, we will discuss later. I cannot explain you right now these things. Let me go to networking tab. So creating virtual machine, it requires one VNet, just because within the VNet this VM will be placed. So if you have one virtual network, you will get your virtual network from this drop down. Okay, if you have existing, otherwise Azure will create one VNet with recommended configuration, just because that is required for your virtual machine. So if you don't know anything about VNet, you don't need to worry about that, just because Azure will create one VNet with one subnet inside your account, inside your resource group, where one public IP address which will be associated, just because we are creating one Linux virtual machine where we have open two public ports. So for sending request to our virtual machine, we require one public IP address which will be created by Azure here. This would be a dynamic public IP address. There would be one NSG which will be associated to your NIC card, and in which there would be two ports which will be open, port 22 and port 80. Let's go to next, which is the management tab here. On management tab, if you will see, we have Azure Security Center, which is a feature here to audit your resources as per the compliance, where you can select your compliance, regulatory compliance, and as per your regulatory compliance, you will get the secure support, secure score, and you can audit your resources, which is configured by you. You can do server hardening, network hardening. You would be able to enable JIT, just-in-time access, for your virtual machines through this Azure Security Center. You will get the recommendation and remediation for your resources in terms of security as well. Monitoring, on monitoring we have boot diagnostics. So if there would be some error inside your virtual machine and you need to troubleshoot, you can enable boot diagnostic, where you will get one console through which you would be able to, serial console through which you would be able to troubleshoot your virtual machine. Similarly, we have OS diagnostic as well, so which you can enable, and you would be able to troubleshoot your operating system as well. Then a rest option or lengthy options, which we will discuss later, and I cannot explain these options right now, just because it will take time to explain me. So here we have auto shutdown option, where you can schedule auto shutdown for your virtual machine. You can configure backup for your virtual machine. You can specify your OS updates if there will be some patch. So how this will be implemented? So we have image default, use the image default patch option. This would be the right option right now here, which is available option for my subscription. Next, in advanced tab, you can specify extensions for Windows machine, or you can specify some cloud init data, where you can specify some commands which will be run once your VM will be up and running. So whatever command you will specify here, this will be run here. And if you have Windows virtual machine, you need to install some agents inside your virtual machine, like some monitoring agent, some anti-malware agent, or you need to enable some services. So you can create one PowerShell script through which you can enable your services without having the console of your virtual machine through extension data, which we are not going to do right now. Tags, so tags are a metadata here which you will provide in key and value pair. So key would be the name here, and there would be one value for that name. Like I'm going to create this virtual machine for a project, so where I have multiple projects inside my organization. So this would be for project 1, or for project 2, or for project 3. So I will use one name here which would be project, and then my value, my project value, I will specify here. So through which I would be able to audit my all resources which will be inside that particular project. If I need to check consolidated billing for my resources which is involved in that project, I would be able to check my consolidated billing for those resources which have this tag, like project A. So resources which have the tag of project A, I would be able to check consolidated billing for all those resources. If I need to create some policies, some compliance policy for that particular project, I would be able to create one compliance policy for that project through this tag. I can use this tag. So whatever resources who are using this tag, they all will get that policy. The policy will be automatically inherited to all those resources. Review. So tags are optional here. You can leave this. So you can review your settings. So whatever configuration you have done here, you can review your configuration and then you will get one estimated cost here, per hour cost for your virtual machine, and then you can click on create. Let me click on create. This will be provisioned in few seconds. So here you can see, as I have created one Linux virtual machine, so it will ask me to download your private key. So let me click on download. So once I will download my private key, then it will start the deployment. So let me download this private key on my local system. So this would be downloaded here. Let me return to my deployment page, where you would be able to see the deployment will be start here, and you will see the progress report here. Now, if we are deploying our resources through the portal, so basically in front end, we are selecting our resources through the portal from the management portal. But at back end, what Azure is doing, Azure is writing one JSON script, correct, which you would be able to see through this template tab. So there would be one script which is created by Azure, JSON script, and through which all the resource deployment is going on. And you would be able to see your resource deployment task here, which is going on. So these resources which is created by Azure, and then there is a final resource which is my VM1, which will be done in few seconds, and then we would be able to test this, how you will connect this virtual machine. Then this lab will be done. That is done here. Let me go to my resource. So I will go to my resource where I will get this VM access. You can see. So where I will get one public IP address. If you will see at left hand side, there is option networking tab. So if I will go to networking tab, where I will get my firewall, where you would be able to see there would be two ports which will be open, port 22 and port 80, which is open to everyone. Now, how I will connect this virtual machine? So we have different options to connect this virtual machine. So if I'm a Windows user, then I can use putty, or I can use Mobix stream, through which I can access my virtual machine through SSH. Or if I'm using Mac or Linux OS, then I need to click on connect, and I need to go to SSH, and here I will get the commands for accessing my virtual machine through Linux or through Mac OS, where first of all I need to change permission of my private key which I have downloaded on my local system. Then I need to run this command to access my virtual machine, this Linux virtual machine on my Linux or Mac OS. Now, as I am using here Windows system, so what I can do, I can access my virtual machine through putty or through Mobex. So let me show you through Mobex. So I'm using here Mobex stream, where we need to click on sessions, and there's option SSH. I'm going to create SSH session. Click on it. So remote host, in remote host, you can provide your VM DNS name or your VM public IP address. So right now DNS name is not configured for this public IP address. So I'm going to use this public IP address. So copy public IP address, paste here, then specify your username. So I hope you all remember my username is Azure user for this virtual machine. You can use any username, but you cannot use standard names like admin. I cannot use here. So you can use Azure user, student, or your name as a username for your virtual machine. Then I need to go to advanced SSS setting, where I need to browse my private key for authentication purpose. It's because I'm sending one request on port number 22 through this username on this IP address. How I will authenticate myself that I'm an authenticated user? So through this private key, I will authenticate myself. So let me go to my desktop, where I have that private key, which is VM. Let me check VM1 underscore key dot pam. Let me open this key. So this would be my private key. Let me click on OK, and you would be able to see here that I'm authenticated here, and I'm able to access my console. So first of all, let me clear my console. Let me show you the path where your public key will be stored. So ls home and Azure user. So there's no content, just because this will be stored in a hidden path. So let me use here ls space hyphen a switch. then you would be able to see one folder which would be .ssh. So here I have one folder which is .ssh. So let me use this folder. Under this folder there would be authorized keys, and that is your public key. So let me only ls ssh, press enter. Here you can see you have one file which is authorized key. So that is your public key basically, which is stored inside your virtual machine, and you have private key on your local system. So whenever you will authenticate yourself through your private key, Azure will match your thumbprint from this public key. So if the thumbprint will be matched, then you would be able to access your virtual machine. Correct. Now I can install my packages. Like if I have to install Apache server, I will install Apache server package here. So, and if I have to configure some other services, I will install those packages as well. Just because I have access of my virtual machine, so I can do anything inside my virtual machine. I hope you all have enjoyed this webinar. So thank you. Thanks for joining this webinar.